This week on Preview Picks is action-packed. We've got the fastest man alive, a warrior goddess, a man who spends his life under the sea, and the ongoing tales of a synthezoid that decided to build his own family. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Preview Picks. This is where we go over the newest comics that are going to be dropping this week to give you an idea of what you might want to pick up and what's new that you might not even know is coming out. Let's start off with independent titles, and particularly we're going to go with number ones. So to lead off that list, we have 4001 AD Bloodshot, which is going to be written by Jeff Lemire and illustrated by Doug Braithwaite. So Doug's done a lot of work across the entirety of comics, and Jeff Lemire is probably one of the hardest working guys in comics right now, writing books for Image, Marvel, and then now this title for Valiant. I haven't really got much into the Valiant universe, but I figure that this is going to be a great opportunity since it's a writer that I enjoy, and it's going to be a good gateway into other parts of the Valiant universe. Next we have Joyride number 1, which is a second printing, and this is from Boom Studios. So the opening tag for the description of it is just like, the Earth sucks. And I'm like, okay, cool. Looks like teenagers and, it's a post-apocalyptic or, kind of like a dystopian kind of future. So you've got me right there with that kind of description. Then we have Midnight of the Soul from Image Comics. So this is a one-man show that's going to be both writer and illustrator, and it's really kind of delving into the history of a person that has been, a liberator of Auschwitz based in the 1950s. You can kind of tell from the cover art that it's more of a period piece, and we're going to see how that dynamic kind of unfolds. Then from Marvel, we have a tie-in that I'm going to be picking up personally. I don't necessarily know if it's something for everybody, but because I'm an Amazing Spider-Man fan, I kind of have to pick up Civil War II, Amazing Spider-Man number 1. So this isn't going to be something that fits into the main story. It's not being written by, Dan Slott. It's being written by Christos Gage, and ultimately, I'm interested to see where this goes and how it ties in and how he can write Spider-Man comparable to the way Dan Slott is, or if he goes in a completely different direction. It's one of those things where I want to see how Spider-Man fits into the Civil War II summer event. Since he was such a key player in last time's Civil War, I feel like he might take a little bit more of a back seat, but you never know. Finally, we get down to DC's number 1s this week, and that includes Aquaman Rebirth number 1, which is written by Dan Abnett. We've got The Flash number 1, which is written by Joshua Williamson, and then we have Wonder Woman number 1, which is written by Greg Rucka. I just wanted to say that, man, these are titles that we're highly anticipating. After Batman Rebirth dropped, Superman Rebirth dropped, Green Lantern's Rebirth dropped, and my surprise favorite, Green Arrow, Rebirth dropped last week. I'm really excited to see where these kind of go because I'm not really a huge DC fan, never really have been, and these are giving me fresh storylines, great takes, and ultimately the way that these are being written is really kind of engaging me for at least like the first story arc, the first 5 to 7 issues, and possibly something that's going to take on a little bit longer. So I'm really excited to see where the Flash, Wonder Woman, and the Aquaman story, which is kind of a, Arthur Curry's kind of a lost character for me. I'm interested to see where that goes as well. While fitting into the Rebirth titles, but not technically in number 1, Action Comics is going back to its original number scheme. So with number 957, you're actually being introduced to the old Superman, who's replacing the new 52 Superman, and going against Lex Luthor, who's like the new 52 Lex Luthor, and it's written by Dan Jurgens. I don't know what's going on in the story, but with Peter J. Tomasi writing Superman Rebirth number 1, and Dan Jurgens being a very accomplished writer himself, I'm really interested to see how those kind of creations coexist in the DC universe. I don't think that they're going to be too contradictory to each other, and I feel like this is going to be a really good kind of evolution. It seems like Action Comics is focusing a little bit more on the outside interactions, just based on the cover artwork, a bit more focused on the outside interactions of Superman, whereas Superman itself is going to be a much more personal book where he's dealing with himself, Lois, his young son, those kind of things. Also in that same lineup, we've got Detective Comics. So Detective Comics is going back to its original number scheme as well, and what we see Batman with Batwoman taking on proteges, so to speak. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see this multi-mentor kind of role unfold in Detective Comics. I don't know if it's got me nearly as much as the Batman title by Tom King does, but I'm interested to see where this goes as well. And again, it's not technically a number 1, but it's going back to the original numbering scheme, so it's going to be a good spot to jump onto. Now we're going to take a look at ongoing books that might want to get you back into the original sections of the series. So first up we have The Fix number 3. And The Fix number 3 is a book written by Nick Spencer, who's been getting a whole host of shit for what he did in Captain America Steve Rogers #1. And while I might not agree with it being deserved or not, I'm interested to see where he takes that story. And ultimately this story, it's kind of like a police corruption kind of tale. And the cool thing is that the Fix issue 1, it sold about 15,000 copies, but it sold out. It went to second printing last month, and this is actually the third printing of the Fix #1 coming out at the same time. Also, there's a second printing of the Fix #2, so this is a great opportunity to get issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3 all at once, so that way you can catch up on the story immediately. Then we've got one of my most highly anticipated titles coming out this week, Renato Jones, The 1% issue 2, written by Carr Andrews. And not only written by the pencils, the inks, the colors, and oh god, this is just so crazy. Because if you think about, I don't want to get too heavy into politics or things like that, but ultimately income inequality is a huge concern for the young people of America as well as the world, because so much wealth is being held by the top 1%, as you would hear in the media. And what Carr Andrews does is he takes this concept, which is extremely volatile and it's very current inside the mainstream culture, and he turns it into a superhero tale. And you can't even call him a superhero because he's more like the Punisher. He's like a force of nature that's going to be blasting his way through the world of the ultra rich and exposing their corruption and giving them they're just desserts, so to speak. And it's very interesting socioeconomic commentary that I highly recommend everybody pick up. If you're age appropriate, it's not going to make it comfortable, but ultimately he's going to deal in topics that could be very personal to you and could express that whole inner violence, id kind of feeling on the page, and it's very much an expression and a relief of your own personal concerns, which is why it's one of my most anticipated titles coming up. I think that he's absolutely crushing it, and the book deserves considerably more attention than it's getting. After that, on the Icon imprint from Marvel, we have Mark Millar and Stuart Immonen. They're producing Empress. So Empress is on issue 3 out of 7, I believe, as far as the way the series is going to go. And Stuart does a great job with the illustrations. The art is fantastic. And ultimately, Mark Millar, you love him or you hate him. I really happen to enjoy his writing most of the time. So I'm on there for the entirety of the story. Then we have Goldie Vance #3. So Goldie Vance is a tale of a teen detective that's written by Hope Larson and illustrated by Brittany Williams. Brittany Williams does the illustrations for Patsy Walker Hellcat, and then Hope Larson is actually writing Batgirl, which is starting off #1 a few weeks from now. And, this is a really cool kind of combo. I haven't really read it, but I'm picking it up so that way I can browse through it. Maybe I can give it to my niece. But it's a great introduction into a younger character base for younger readers if they want something that kind of touches on the same kind of age bracket that they're in, give or take, with really kind of colorful, grabby kind of art that Brittany Williams does. And it's one of those books where the first issue only really did 7,000, and from an Eisner Award nominated writer like Hope Larson, I feel like that's super low for where it should be. But this is a pretty low production book from Boom Studios, so it's not like it's going to get massive kind of traction out there unless people know more about it. But it'd be a recommendation, go pick up #3. It's only got 4 or 5 issues in the entire run. So it'd be great to have as a little mini series. And if you have a younger reader in your family or your friend's kid or something like that you want to get them into comic books, that's a great place for them to start. Last but not least, this is also one of my most anticipated titles, and that is The Vision by Tom King. So The Vision is probably one of the craziest, most awesome stories that I'm reading right now. It's the best book that nobody is buying, unfortunately. It's crazy because Tom King just got so much attention. He's writing Batman, he just got nominated for an Eisner for a short story, and ultimately he puts some of the best character development into what is essentially a blank slate. The Vision, he has to craft his own emotions, and Tom King takes him to places that are extremely difficult, possibly very dark, and on the brink of disaster for all of humanity in very simple yet sophisticated character arcs. And in issue 7 we see Tom King really interpret and retell the story of the Scarlet Witch and the Vision and create a very compelling story arc which makes you understand the entire motivations for the first 6 issues. So the primary issues, you've got issue 1 through 6, which is the first story arc, you've got issue 7, which is a stopgap, and then this issue 8 leads off with the last story arc from issue 8 to issue 12, because, Tom King's stepping off the book at issue 12. So if I can make any recommendation, because this book is absolutely killer, I would say go buy issue 1, go buy issue 2, go buy the trade, go buy whatever you can for the Vision, and kind of get yourself into this story, because I feel like you're going to be really surprised as to how you feel about it. I really enjoy it, and I can't recommend it strongly enough. That's it for this episode of Preview Picks. If you like what you see, hit the like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more news regarding comic books, comic book movies, TV shows, and anything and everything regarding the universe of comics.